Ladies and gentlemen, it's Spessy here with a new style of video today looking at the best Emerald decks in Set 4. Of course, it's very early days, so make sure you're subscribed to see some more refined version of these lists as the meta develops. And as well, let me know in the comments which ink color you want me to cover next. We have a budget deck in this one, we have a deck with every single color combination, and we also have a meme deck in there as well. So first and foremost, I thought a good place to start would be Emerald Steel. Emerald Steel, of course, a deck which I'm quite well associated with from set number 3. It proved to be very, very strong, and it did get quite a bit better, but as you might notice, the list I've put together here looks incredibly familiar with just a few differences. The most important one for Emerald Steel, in my opinion, is Pegasus. Now, I believe Pegasus, my hot take, is that Pegasus is the best card in Set 4. And the reason I think that is it just gives Emerald exactly what it wants, which is an incredibly strong turn 1 play if you don't have Merfolk. Curse Merfolk, I'm sure we can all agree, is the best turn 1 play when going first. But when going second, it's not quite as impressive. You often are going to be wanting to fight for some board control. Pegasus, however, when going second, is, I think, the best card in the game when going second on turn 1. It's just an evasive card which can continue to quest and rack up lore. Very, very powerful card. Previously in Emerald Steel, you saw maybe Robin Hood in this sort. You saw perhaps Captain Hook. In fact, for a very long time in Set 3, still to this day, in Lille, I'm quite likely to be playing a deck with the 1-cost Robin Hood without the shift Robin Hood, simply because there was a lack of good 1-drops available in Emerald and Steel. And this is a pretty aggressive deck, and therefore Pegasus is just such an impressive card, and you're going to be seeing it in a lot of these decks. The other one that's new to this is the Muses, and the Muses is a card you're going to be seeing a lot of in Set 4. I don't think it's particularly strong in Emerald Steel, which is why we're only running 2 copies of it, because Emerald Steel, of course, has access to Let the Storm Rage On and Strength of a Raging Fire, which are very, very powerful control tools, which are songs. However, the Muses also gives you control when you're singing Sudden Chill. So, for example, you play Ursula on turn 3, and then on turn 4, you play the Muses singing Sudden Chill, and you're able to potentially bounce back 2 of your opponent's cards into their hand to gain a lot of board control and tempo. So the Muses is a card you're going to be seeing in a lot of the other decks. And also, we don't talk about Bruno. And again, we don't talk about Bruno, an amazing card. You're going to be seeing it in a lot of these decks. But I'm not convinced it's that good in this deck. I think it's solid, but it's really a card you want to be singing. And in this deck, you're most likely just going to be spending 5 ink to play it, which is also fine with Prince John, of course, bouncing a card back to your opponent's hand. If they have no cards left in hand, right, if you've managed to discard their whole hand, then we don't talk about Bruno is going to be bouncing that card back to their hand. They're discarding it. And if you have Prince John on the board, you're also drawing. And of course, you can sing it with Beast as well. So overall, I think Emerald Steel is looking very similar. I would argue it was probably the best deck in Set 3, and therefore I expect it to still remain very strong. But you kind of just get a little view of really what's changed here, which is not all that much, but Pegasus in particular, an impressive card. Also, I think Benja here, because Sapphire items look very strong this set. And Baboom as well. Baboom, a card I've been a big fan of. I would actually run 4 Babooms personally, but I knew a lot of people wouldn't like that, so I just put it down to 3. I think Baboom has got even better this set with cards like Pegasus, which are going to be very, very popular. And also worth mentioning the Muses here in Emerald Mirrors. Imagine I'm going first in an Emerald Mirror, I play my Ursula on turn 3, and then my opponent replies with an Ursula, and then I play the Muses, and then I can bounce back my opponent's Ursula. So very, very strong card when going first in Emerald Mirrors. All right, up next we have Blue, Green, Sapphire, Emerald. Now, this is probably the biggest pile of the video in terms of like a color combination. Emerald and Sapphire is the only color combination I never tried in Set 3, and it did actually get a little bit of something. The main thing it got is this new song card here, which is also in the starter deck actually, Seldom All They Seem, which chosen character gets -3 strength this turn. So this combined with the Muses, which is whenever you play a song you may return chosen character with 2 strength or less to their player's hand, gives you a little bit of something potentially. Of course, you can sing Sudden Chill with Ursula. You also might want to play like Strike a Good Match. You can also sing One Jump Ahead with Ursula potentially, which is something I included 3 copies of. One jump ahead I'm not sure on, to be completely fair. But yeah, the idea really with this one is you just have your classic Emerald discard stuff, with the new Pegasus card getting you some questing. The Muses plus Seldom All They Seem can give you that board control, which this deck otherwise lacked. And then also a little bit of ramp to try and get to 6 ink to make use of Robin Hood Daydreamer as just an inkable card, and Aerial Treasure Collector, which can quest for 5. Ice Block is also a new item card, which doesn't look particularly impressive in most decks, but it might have a home in a Emerald Sapphire deck, because you can exert it once per turn, and a chosen character gets -1 strength, which of course can synergize in a big way with the Muses, and therefore with Seldom All They Seem and the Muses, you can just potentially be bouncing back all of your opponent's cards with your Ursula, and it could be good. The other thing to mention, there's no 5-cost cards in this one. I wasn't really sure what to do with the one jump ahead, the Aerials, the Robin Hoods. You could cap out at 5 ink instead, but there's not that many good 5 ink cards really. There's Cogsworth. There's also the new card Cricky or Crikey, which is an interesting option as well. But I do think this deck has a little bit of potential. I still would imagine that Emerald Sapphire is lacking a little bit of something, but certainly Seldom All They Seem is not a card you're going to be wanting to play in any other deck, similar with Ice Block probably, but here it could prove to be pretty good and is worth experimenting with a little bit. Okay, moving on to the budget deck. Now we're actually looking at 3 different versions of Emerald and Amethyst here. We have a budget deck, a meme deck, and then a more competitive take on the color combination. So this one is Flotsam and Jetsam. Flotsam and Jetsam, there's been a whole bunch of Flotsam and Jetsam cards, I think in every set so far. Maybe set 2 we missed out on some, but there's a whole bunch of them. But there's this new Flotsam and Jetsam card, which is actually the 6-cost inkable that you can just see here, which is a new shift mechanic, which I don't think you're going to make use of. I think you're just going to play it for 6, but it counts as being both Flotsam and Jetsam. So potentially this card could have Challenger 2, it could be evasive, it could have 3 extra strength, so it could challenge potentially for 10. It can have ward, evasive, and rush, right? So potentially very, very powerful, and definitely a very interesting budget deck. And also it can have, when you're whenever it's banished, it returns to your hand. So there's a couple new Flotsam and Jetsam cards. The Jetsam card here gives Challenger 2 to your Flotsam cards. I don't think that one's very good, but the Flotsam card I think is great. When this is banished in a challenge, it returns to your hand, and your character's name Jetsam gain the same. So definitely more of a budget for fun deck. So I just paired this with the bounce package of Amethyst, because those cards are very readily available. Most people are going to have access to them because of course they were included in a starter deck. Of course the bounce package, very solid as well. We put Ursula Deceiver in there, as well as Pegasus. Chernobog's followers could be any 1-drop of your choice really. There's a whole bunch of nice ones. You could go for Pascal to have the Pascal and Pegasus, but Chernobog's followers just gives you a little bit of card draw. Potentially. I don't think this deck's going to be competitive, but I do think it's going to be a lot of fun, and definitely one I wanted to highlight. Up next we have the meme deck, which is the Green Jafar. Oh my goodness, Green Jafar is a deck I've wanted to be good for so long. I have actually taken this for a spin and I was super disappointed, but I do have quite a few ideas with Jafar. The main idea of this one is utilizing the new Sing Together card, second star to the right, which is a 10-cost uninkable. And the problem I found with this deck in practice is that if you're not able to sing second star to the right, then it's just stuck in your hand indefinitely. But the idea is, with Ursula Deceiver of All and Jafar down on the board, you can use second star to the right to Sing Together with those two, which will be playing it twice. So you could draw 10 cards, gaining you 10 lore, and if you can pull that off, you're probably winning the game. Unfortunately, it's not the most consistent. We've also got the new Ursula Sea Witch Queen, which I think is going to be a great card in Emerald and Amethyst, and also might be seeing some play in some kind of Amber Amethyst deck as well. You've got Morph in there, which is a target for both Jafar and Ursula. Yeah. This one is more of a for fun deck. You also might, instead of this Diablo, want to play that 3-cost Jafar as an extra shift target, because there's really not that many shift targets in this one. And in fact, I'm going to update the deck accordingly. I would say that somehow I accidentally didn't include the 3-cost Jafar, which should be in here. So probably like the Magic Broom here should just be this 3-cost Jafar. So my apologies for that, and I'll update the deck link in the description accordingly. Again, more of a for fun deck to pull off a big meme combo with Ursula Jafar. Just getting 10 lore in a single turn and drawing 10 cards sounds pretty good. But onto a more serious take on the deck. This is Artabax's take, early take. I'm sure he's going to be updating it as he goes on Emerald Amethyst. Artabax finished second on the Pixelborn Hardcore ladder, also finished second in Tia's most recent tournament. He is the GOAT of Emerald and Amethyst, and this is what he threw together. So he's utilizing the new Diablo card. I'm honestly not convinced by Diablo, which is why you're not seeing it in a lot of my decks. I definitely think the card has a lot of potential, but I do think it's the most overrated card from the set, which is a hot take. Now, because I say that a card is overrated, that doesn't mean I think it's bad. I just think it's not as good as people are making it out to be. I think the card is very good and has a lot of potential. I just don't think it's as good as people think it is. The reason is the shift is very expensive. You're basically playing 3 cards from hand to get Diablo down, and admittedly Diablo is going to draw you a card instantly, so it's more like 2 cards, but that's, you know, it's a bit clunky. Moreover, I think the shift options for Diablo are just very lackluster, and you can see that Artabax is actually not including any of those in here. But the main thing that this deck got really is Crikey. I think Crikey looks absolutely amazing, or Cricky, I think it might be. Looks absolutely amazing in this color combination. It's a card I love the look of. When you play this character, your other characters get +3 strength this turn. So if you were to play a rabbit on turn 4, and then Crikey or Cricky on turn 5, suddenly your rabbit has 5 strength, which is absolutely obscene. Also, your Ursula Deceiver would have 4 strength. That is really very powerful. So I think this deck's got a lot of legs. Ursula Sea Witch Queen looks like she has a lot of potential in this one as well, because you're already going to be playing the Ursula Deceiver. Queen's Castle, we don't talk about Bruno, some other interesting options, as well as the shift. Pegasus. Also, Zeus is in here, which is a new card which has quite a lot of potential. Just a card which quests for 2 with 5 willpower is pretty good, and it can be a nice option to challenge stuff. I'm definitely going to be experimenting a little bit with some more serious Emerald Amethyst decks myself, but I wanted to share with you Artabax's version. I think this deck's got a lot of legs, but I think the decks, which I'm going to be sharing in just a moment, have even more potential. Let's have a look at them. The 2 decks I'm most excited for right at the end. Amber Discard. Oh my goodness, this deck is spicy. I was watching Savage play this deck on his stream yesterday, having played a couple games with it myself, and it has got a lot of potential. There's definitely some other things you might want to consider, like I'm not playing the 1-cost Cinderella. I think she's a serious consideration in this one. I just went for Merfolk and Pegasus instead. But the main idea with this one is that you have a bunch of very, very powerful songs and a bunch of discard cards and a bunch of singer cards. So Ursula Vanessa has Singer 4. Ursula Deceiver of All, of course, has Singer, well, not Singer 3, but she can sing... She contributes, she can sing songs which cost 3, right? So Ursula Vanessa plus Ursula Deceiver of All means that you can sing Look at This Family twice, essentially drawing 4 cards in a single turn. You've also got Under the Sea, which is Sing Together 8, which puts all opposing characters with 2 strength or less on the bottom of their player's deck. Of course, you've also got the Muses in this one, which is whenever you play a song, you may return chosen character with 2 strength or less to their player's hand. I've got a couple copies of Record Player in here, which is whenever you play a song, chosen character gets -2 strength until the start of your next turn. So you have a bit of board control with the Muses, with Under the Sea, and with Record Player. You've got a whole bunch of discard with the new Daisy Duck card as well, which is very comparable to Friar Tuck. It doesn't quest for as much and it has less willpower, but it's whenever you play this character, your opponent chooses and discards a card. So even if your opponent has just 1 card in hand and you have 17 cards in hand, the Daisy Duck is going to be discarded. You've also got a little bit of Bare Necessities action. This new Ursula Eric's Bride card has some potential. Not super convinced on this card. I think maybe 1 copy might be a little bit more reasonable, but I suppose if you're playing both Ursula Vanessa and Ursula Deceiver, you have a couple of good shift options. So you can discard a song card to shift this in, and whenever it quests, your opponent reveals their hand and discards a non-character card of choice. So it's kind of, you know, you could play your Ursula Deceiver on turn 2. You can see what's in their hand, if they've got a location, if they've got an item, or just an action or song card that you're really scared of. Then you can take a peek at what they ink the next turn. And then if it's something you like the look of, you can shift in Ursula Eric's Bride. And then also, to be fair, even just playing it as a 4-cost uninkable, it's very comparable to Daisy Duck from set 2, I think it is. The Daisy Duck, which was seeing a little bit of play in Emerald. last set. So pretty solid card, very interesting deck. The main thing really in this one is, do you want the muses or do you want more copies of Under the Sea? Do you want the 1-drop Cinderella? Do you want to play Mother Knows Best perhaps for some more bounce tools? But we don't talk about Bruno. Absolutely shines in this one. You can sing it with Ariel. A lot of you are also going to mention, why are you not playing Atlantica, which is this new 1-cost location which you can move a character in there, increasing its ability to sing songs by 2. I did test it. I moved Ursula in there and sung We Don't Talk About Bruno with Ursula, which was pretty fun, but it just wasn't really worth it. Instead of playing Atlantica, you're probably better off, for example, just playing the 1-drop Cinderella to help you achieve those songs more easily. I think this deck could be really good. I really, really do. There's lots of room for experimentation in this one. But the deck I'm most excited for in the Emerald is being saved to a last, and it's a deck which I really wanted to be good in set 3 and felt like it was almost good. And the reason I love this next deck I'm about to show you is because I think it has the ultimate curve. A lot of the Emerald decks, even this one, you really just want to be playing a lot of Emerald cards. You want to play like Curse Merfolk on turn 1, Flynn Rider turn 2, Ursula on turn 3, Prince John on turn 4, Sing Sudden Chill on turn 4, and then on turn 5, what do you want? What do you want most after you've done all that? You want Maui. Of course you do. And this deck has 5 Mauis. Potentially you could even play 2 copies of Hercules. I think Hercules Daring Demigod is a really, really good card, and a lot of people are underestimating it because it is just another version of Maui. Okay, it's worse than Maui. Of course it is. It's uninkable. It has less defense, or willpower, I should say. I was able to 1-hit a Queen's Castle, which was quite satisfying. But this is a deck I really wanted to be good in set 3, but it had a couple of huge issues. Mainly, it had no good options in terms of 1-drops outside of Curse Merfolk, and now you have Pegasus, one of the best 1-drops in the entire game. You also now have access slightly. The other thing it struggled with is like songs, and it still does kind of struggle with that outside of Sudden Chill. There's really not much. Strike a Good Matches is an okay option, particularly if you want to go a little bit more heavy on the uninkables, like with Madame Medusa. I think you could go to like 4 Strike a Good Match and maybe even play 4 Madame Medusas. I've also got 1 copy of Pirate's Life in here because it's an interesting combo. You can sing it with Ursula and something else, and then your opponent's going to lose 4 lore and you gain 4, so that's kind of interesting. But this deck also has Goofy, Super Goof, contender for one of the best cards in the set, which is whenever this character challenges another character, gain 2 lore. And we also have another contender for best card in the set, which is Milan Elite Archer. We have 1 Shift Milan. You could also consider playing a couple copies of the 1-drop Milan to go up to 10 1-drops and then just have another shift option. There's very little synergy with that Milan in this deck, but as I mentioned, it will just be there as a shift target and a bit of extra consistency. Milan, Enemy of Entanglement, this 2-cost is whenever you play an action, this character gets +2 strength this turn. Obviously with Ursula, Deceiver of All, that means that you could have a lot of strength on Milan, which is pretty interesting. You're relying on Prince John for your card draw, with Sudden Chill, Friar Tuck being very, very important. We Don't Talk About Bruno is great in this deck because it can be sung by Maui and Hercules. I found that to be absolutely insane value. With this deck, you're going to be hard mulliganing to try and find your Prince John, really. So it is important to be kind of low on the uninkables. But this deck has so much potential. I think most likely Pirate's Life isn't going to make the cut, and you're probably going to end up playing 4 Strike a Good Match, maybe more copies of Medusa, maybe the Muses doesn't make the cut in this one. I think that this is contender for my favorite deck of the set. I think this deck has so much juice. If I was to play in a tournament tomorrow, I would bring Ruby and Emerald. I think it's going to be that good. I really just think that this deck is Emerald is crying out for Maui on turn 5. You play Merfolk 1, Flynn 2, Prince John maybe on 3, Friar Tuck on 4, bam, Maui 5, right? It's just the card you want to play on turn 5, and Hercules also gives you that little bit of extra consistency. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a like if you did. Let me know in the comments what other Emerald decks you think I should have mentioned, because there's a bunch of other decks. There's Bucky, there's Mill, but obviously I'm just one man and it's very early on in the set, and I didn't want to bring you guys too many decks which I haven't really thought about too much, which hope you guys enjoy it. Give it a like and let me know in the comments what color you want me to focus on tomorrow. Probably going to be looking at steel, maybe, but let me know in the comments. I'll definitely see what you guys have to say. All right, bye now.